welcome to the Wrestling Fan Wrestling Show. I'm the big beefy boy, Shaz Beef, and I'm joined by an old buck in Morro. And then these two marks, Johnny Martz and Keychain.
Kieran Dunphy is my name, thanks very much.
Kieran Dunphy is his name, and occult.
Taking a break from a wedding.
Is it a wrestling wedding?
Yep.
Were you down with Healy Rey Mysterio last week?
So just for the viewers, listeners, a few jokes that I created were
That's not true.
were suffered.
Didn't happen.
Healy Rey Mysterio. That was a very good joke.
I know, I came up with it on the spot.
I know, right?
I got text evidence that says otherwise.
I came up with it. Nobody knows when this was recorded.
Private jokes.
Yeah, private jokes in the WhatsApp group. You don't want to know what's going on, and now it's just wrestling. It's kind of sad. You touched upon this in the podcast where we review Clash of the
Fuck's
Castle.
sake, I thought you'd bring up the glasses, but now I feel like an idiot.
No, because you brought them up with
you're
me.
in business mode.
Yeah, glasses were terrible. But you brought up something on the review of Clash of the Castle when I mentioned the new Wyatt faction. Obviously, they've debuted since, and you exercised trepidation when it came to
Extreme trepidation.
It sounds like a pay-per-view.
extreme trepidation. TNA.
It does sound like a TNA pay-per-view. Yeah.
But we're going to kind of get into the occult, maybe what this faction is going to do, and like previous characters when it came to the occult.
You were saying we might do a Ouija board on the table at the end.
Who are we contacting, lads? First wrestler.
Benoit.
You can't. You can't contact Benoit. You can't bring him
Not
up
tonight,
anymore.
not on this episode.
No. Kevin Sullivan did it. What?
I fucking knew it. I knew it.
Speaking of Kevin Sullivan,
Yeah, well, he won.
Dungeon of Doom.
Nice
So
segue.
but also even before that, like he was one of the first wrestlers in general to come up with an occult gimmick.
Army of Darkness, was it? Or he had a group in the...
Down in Florida in like the late 70s, early 80s, he had a mad group of just fucking head to balls. He always really dug that kind of Charles Manson vibe in wrestling, which I don't know if anyone else had really done much of that in the 70s. It was still pretty straight-laced.
Well, was it like Charles Manson-esque in like that was satanic he was going with?
Yeah, the idea that so there's like a massive big satanic fucking scare in like the late 70s, you know, there was a lot of that like Summer of Sam leaning stuff going on in the media, and there was a lot of sensationalization, and he did like pretty much the first Satanist gimmick that I'm aware of, but the first one that seemed to break through in any kind of major way. And it was a big deal down in Florida at the time.
Yeah, I can like I wasn't alive for it, you know, and it's only in retrospect where you start hearing about it. But my first experience of the occult would be someone who I grew up scared shitless of, and it came from the Sega Mega Drive game, because you could play the theme songs on the Sega Mega Drive of the wrestlers. And
Knuckles from Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yeah, but yeah.
You scared of Knuckles?
I'm very scared of Knuckles.
Nice.
Yeah,
That's a fair point.
my nickname used to be Hedgehog because I had spiky hair, so fuck Knuckles. I'm a Sonic all the way.
All right.
But it was the Sega Mega Drive, and my cousin used to play Papa Shango's theme song on repeat.
I had the same vibe exactly. The two I used to play on repeat were Papa Shango's and Rick the Model Martel.
They were two
was
completely different
sensational
vibes.
Yeah.
But actually not dissimilar. You listen to them side by side.
They both came out with sticks or
Perfume.
perfume. But Papa Shango was my first real kind of delve into.
It was a fucking excellent theme tune. Like, it really was. And it really suited, like, the physicality of that character. Jim Johnson never misses.
like Undertaker was around before.
Yeah,
then.
that's what I was going to say. Like, did Undertaker not cross your path prior to Papa Shango?
I don't think until later when I started fully realising wrestling and what it was that the Undertaker character came out. My first experience of Undertaker was probably Survivor Series 1992. I remember he was in a casket match with Kamala. And I remember being scared shitless of the vignette of Undertaker, but he didn't really have those spooky elements, like in terms of supernatural elements at that time. I know he was a walking zombie, but
like, he was.
Well, he's a walking zombie. I think that's enough for me. Like, to know that he's occultish beyond anything that I'd ever seen.
But
before.
he had that whole Western kind of vibe, and we would have grown up maybe watching
didn't
spaghetti
feel that, though.
Western.
Master
I didn't
Carpenter.
feel it, no.
I think the problem for me with The Undertaker, I don't doubt that The Undertaker is probably like the greatest and obviously most enduring supernatural occult tinged gimmick that they have. But like The Undertaker for me, when he turned face in late 91, which is very early into his tenure,
14 months?
I knew from then on out he had good in his heart. And truly, he meant us no harm, which was really valuable information to have as a 7-year-old who is otherwise scared of the wrestling zombie.
Especially when he had the American flag.
He was gone then. He was fucking nuked. Whereas, a controversial opinion, when I'm fucking 8 years old then and I got Papa Shango and I got The Undertaker on the go at the same time, I found Papa Shango way more scary.
Undertaker used to often rise up rather than going down as well when he would disappear into the
words stuffing.
The workshop?
No, when he'd disappear into heaven or hell.
Okay.
He would always rise up. So, goodness in the heart.
Yeah. And not like necessarily living in the bowels of the building.
Of hell, yeah.
Zombies rise up out of
But Papa Shango,
the earth.
But are you saying that Papa Shango, as in that would scare you while The Undertaker didn't scare you?
yeah, well, Papa Shango had the voodoo and that
the
kind
voodoo
of thing.
part that got me. Actually.
Yeah, he was making and that was the first proper super. He was making people kind of.
He was the first one who had straight up opponent debilitating powers. Like all Undertaker could do was kind of frighten you with the start of his entrance music.
And no sell.
Yeah, you couldn't harm the Undertaker.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
it was
also
a
wasn't
Michael
like.
Myers.
But the tombstone was.
He wasn't giving you fucking migraines from afar or anything.
Yeah.
Whereas Papa Shango, he came out with the stick and the smoke and like that got one of the worst gimmick of the year or something.
Like honestly, what went wrong there? Like
WrestleMania 8.
it was. Yeah, it feels like it was
It
that.
was,
But it's also the worst gimmick by who? Meltzer?
yeah,
Who
probably
would not be into that stuff anyway.
That's voted for by, like, you take his, what would you call it, cohort of readers.
Yeah.
Like,
which
But they're like adults.
I have a subscription.
But they're like adults in the there's
particularly in the early 90s, they would have been a kind of a follow along from the base of fans that he built in the 80s.
exactly.
They're
This is made
wrestling.
and this is made for kids. So it's weird when he's rating all these stuff
not
like
him,
for a
it's
product.
the-
Was Shango,
or his
Papa
friends,
Shango,
yeah.
actually made for kids? Because when the character came out initially, it felt like it was been positioned as a foil for the Undertaker
And Warrior.
which is naturally what it
and
was.
Warrior. Yeah, and it's this idea of a wrestling voodoo priest, which is a really cool
really
gimmick.
good idea.
They got a really good performer to do it in Charles Wright, aka
Friend of ours.
personal friend of yours.
Yeah, he had him on the podcast.
My actual pimp.
Was he Salem's or something Soul Taker before?
He was a soul taker in I think USWA before that, which I then think he reverted to after this. This man was finding his foot and constantly tried to get the 90s with gimmicks, trying to find something that really fit, which he didn't really click in with till he got to the Godfather.
Godfather. Sorry, not the Godfather. Godfather didn't work.
But the Godfather was the one that really got him over, and he had an excellent run with it. But Papa Shango on paper was a really good gimmick. It just
And it fit
did not take off.
It fit into WWE.
Did you see when they tried to bring it back in '98? There was some production photos of a '98. I was like, that looks cool. Obviously, we've got the Godfather, one of the most colourful characters of the Attitude Era, but.
It looked like a really it definitely looked like a more kind of like street level like a Attitude Era update of Papa Shango.
And he would have
dude
ended
in
up,
a suit
would have ended up in the Ministry of Darkness as well.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, which would have been cool as well.
that would have been cool.
But it did feel like that version of Papa Shango was, and this is weird to say it was as close as you could probably get to a cross between the Godfather and Papa Shango.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah.
It was a slightly more
And there's
urban version of Papa Shango.
Yeah. Like a heel Godfather could be very dark if you really went down that route.
Jesus, yeah, that's a potentially
That'd be great.
That'd be awesome.
gimmick.
I love
Probably
that kind
should
of
have
stuff.
been a heel.
It should have been.
Yeah, I don't know.
It would be heel now.
In that era of pop culture, that was celebrated. So you had South Park, you had Jerry Springer, that kind of behavior and stuff was cool.
But the interesting thing then, I guess, in the 90s as well is because obviously, there was so much counterculture and grunge and so much of culture had kind of completely changed, and then and it was all very reality based, and then you got hokey characters then in this what eventually became a very reality based era,
with the Dungeon of Doom.
Yeah.
Like the Dungeon
Which
of
were
Doom
so past their sell by date in 1996 when they emerged.
Like when you mentioned them in our WhatsApp group the other day, I went on a rabbit hole of.
You went down
Dungeon of
into a
Doom.
Dungeon of Doom.
I went in. I found myself in a Dungeon of Doom, lurking around down there. It
and
was
these are all
horrendous.
just foils for Hulk Hogan.
Literally, it
in
was
WCW.
just a monster of the week for Hulk Hogan.
giant haystacks.
Did you say 96? It was not earlier than 96.
I thought it was 94,
I thought it was
95.
early 96. I could be
95,
wrong there.
94,
95.
Here's the
95
crazy thing.
probably. Oh yeah, that was giant haystacks run as
definitely
Loch Ness.
pre-NWO though.
Yeah.
Oh, here's the crazy thing. They crossed over with NWO. NWO and Dungeon of Doom existed for a few months at the same time in WCW.
I have no recollection of this.
you
Because
had-
the Giant left the Dungeon of Doom,
Of course,
and joined
yeah,
the NWO.
yeah.
The
That was kind of the detonator.
Dungeon of
So
Doom
did-
get more legit in 1996.
They
when they got rid
edgy.
of like giant haystacks.
they
and
started to
fucking,
dispense a bit of the
When the
occult
Giant,
kind
when
of.
the Giant won the world title, was he associated with the Dungeon of Doom?
His first run, yes.
Yeah.
Oh no, sorry.
When he
sorry,
debuted, in his first year, he won
because
the
he
world
beat
title.
Hogan at a pay per view, and it was in a kind of a no finish, a dusty finish type thing.
didn't
And then
Hogan
they
throw
gave
him
him
off?
the title the next night.
Didn't Hogan throw him off a skyscraper?
Not a skyscraper. He threw.
Is that with the big camera
he kill
angle?
that man?
They had a
the
destruction
Zoom-
derby match.
Yes,
On a pay per view,
Monster trucks.
a monster truck match, and he threw him off something into a river. He threw him off like a monster truck thing
come
into
back
a
to me.
river, and then
Is that thing with the weird camera angle where there's a camera angle zoomed from one skyscraper across?
No, that's the Wall.
Oh, is that the wall?
That's a character called the Wall. In
The
WCW.
wrestler of the wall. Oh yeah.
Yeah,
And then he-
remember the skyscraper
Oh, yeah,
angle
yeah,
with
yeah,
the
Yeah, and then he
Yeah.
became a sidekick of
Sorry.
Alex Wright when
Alex
Alex Wright
Wright,
started
yeah.
calling
That's
himself
the wall,
Berlin.
and he just-
So you had
Berlin's
Berlin and
the
the wall.
Brilliant. Anyway,
and
apologies.
Genius.
Berlin and
Then-
the Wall is genius. I love that.
the Giant showed up later that night with no no scratches on
The
him.
Giant's
rather
not
than beat Hogan.
supernatural. He's just a giant. But
I
maybe
know,
that's
yeah.
enough.
Yeah,
Well,
well,
yeah, so the Dungeon of Doom started off kind of weirdly supernatural, and then by the time NWA came
They
along,
lost
They had
their
a mad
powers.
mix of guys who were mostly actors and not wrestlers that were righted up to the gills, like Jeep Swenson, who played Bane in Batman and Robin,
Oh, of
everyone's
course,
favorite
yeah,
1997 Joel Schumacher fucking
Classic.
opus. And then Tiny Lister, who was Zeus.
he showed up
in
for
No
a while
Holds
as well.
Barred. Who had a couple of
Conan
matches.
was in it.
Who?
Conan
X-Max
Conan
Moon
was in
Conan.
it?
Conan was in it.
They were on Baywatch as well,
what
weren't they?
would they-
Dungeon of Doom.
Well, no, I thought that was Vader.
Sullivan and Vader. Did
yeah.
it?
What-
no, it was
what-
a
Oh,
Flair.
Abdullah the Butcher as
Flair
well.
and
Abdullah the
Vader.
Butcher
Hold on,
was
was
in
that
there.
in? Was that
Abdullah
a
the
different
Butcher.
faction?
If you look
Abdullah
at the
the Butcher
list-
was with Mick Foley in WCW.
What was that early 90s faction with Abdullah the Butcher, Mick Foley, Cactus Jack, Max Payne?
Who's their manager? They had a manager as well that was out to get Hogan or out to get Flair or something.
Yeah,
Hogan-
Hogan,
You gotta
would have
get
been there at the
Hogan.
time. The Yeti.
Yeah,
Like,
he
is
was
that-
in it. Yeah,
Yeah, like they're
yeah.
like these are all hokey supernatural characters.
Yeah.
Well, there was an element of supernaturalness to them.
and a cult type thing
But
as well.
like the first proper experience for me of something that was supernatural, and I know we said Papa Shango making someone get sick or whatever, but was the Undertaker at Royal Rumble 1994 when he levitated from the casket.
Because he was after being killed. He was after being killed by about fucking 20 lads.
he was going to heaven because he had good in his heart.
But I was like,
he had good in his heart. And ultimately, that is what prevails.
but I was like, is it
he
so?
wrestled God though.
So in this universe, well, we'll get to that. Vince McMahon and wrestling God, but in this universe, like wrestlers can fly now, or wrestlers can ascend to heaven. Or
Well,
their
I
soul-
think
their
if
soul
you're of a
went to heaven.
particular religious faith, you'll just believe that he will ascend to heaven for all the good acts he's committed, such as saving Miss Elizabeth from a chair to the face off Jake Roberts.
For atheists,
etc.
for atheists, there was no special effects. You saw nothing. There was no special effects.
for the atheists.
Yeah,
I
it
saw
just
that
depended
now.
what was in your heart.
I don't even know what you're talking
But
about.
like,
now.
I think what I'm trying to get is a lot of this supernatural stuff comes down to the actual way it's been produced. And
Well, this is
how-
what I
how
said
it
in the
looks.
WhatsApp group before you steal another joke of mine.
I don't know what you're
If you are a member of the occult, if that's part of your gimmick, are you just a pal of someone in the production truck? Could everything be explained away as if
You brought that up before, Morro.
I did. I said it in a different WhatsApp group a week
yeah,
earlier.
Well, there's something in that because I think there's a fine line to cross, and it'll be interesting to see if the new version of the Wyatt family will
lean in on that? They should. It'd be class.
But the idea, and this is where I always thought the Undertaker worked best, and where Kane worked best, and where Mankind, not so much a supernatural character, but certainly with elements of
Sinister darkness.
sinister, dark character. Yeah, like
He lived in a boiler room.
he literally lived in a boiler room, had 2 entrance musics, and a pet rat.
Pet rat pulled out his
Very,
own hair.
very novel for a villain
And
in
he
the
had
mid 90s.
4 personalities.
Ultimately, yeah. There's a lot going on there, really, when it comes to that character. But it's that thing of like whether it can be explained by this character is employing psychological warfare,
Yes.
or this character literally is magic.
Because like when you look at say TV, like the best form of say, the Joker that I've seen was with Heath Ledger, and Heath Ledger, like his plan is very convoluted or whatever, but like you can get the psychotic darkness across in whatever he's doing, and
There's logic.
Yeah, there's logic in it,
Yeah.
and I think the supernatural stuff has to have some form of logic in it, and that's where they fell down with Bray.
I agree.
And we'll get into Bray a bit later as we kind of go through the years, but there has to be some form of
Yeah, but
rhyme or
you do
reason to
need
why it's happening.
You do need to be able to root it in that thing of going, hey, like this guy's got a friend in the production truck.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
Well, they tried
There's
to do that.
something.
Didn't they have a Sammy Callahan kind of hacker gimmick when he first came to WWE?
yeah, when he was Solomon Crowe in NXT, his gimmick was the height of like
Anonymous.
Anonymous, and he became this hacker gimmick. He was hacking into the broadcast for a couple of weeks leading up to it. Nothing too supernatural about it, but
the production thing, like that works in other ways as well, where like if you are waiting for someone to run out, it's like a surprise return, or and their music hits. Obviously, the wrestler had to run up to production first before he made the save and go, by the way, come in here, cue my music, and then he runs out real quick. But like
and that's why when you get to when you go back to WCW, as they started getting more reality based, someone like Sting kind of stands out because they still have that dark. It's based on the Crow, which is so you're already getting
there's an element of that. Yeah,
you're getting predisposed to what this character is meant to be. He's someone that has reincarnated himself.
Yeah,
and he's going to be unstoppable. And they just did it very simply with Sting, that he'd be just observing from the rafters. He wouldn't have to say anything. If the lights go out, the lights go out or whatever. But
with Sting, I thought what they did really well with the original, his first run as the Crow version of Sting, was they showed the bells and whistles.
Exactly. The thing I will say about that.
What do you mean?
Like he
how he propelled out, where he was in the building.
Oh, sorry.
Even up until like his retirement this year, he still employed those elements which are actually rooted in.
That's what you said. Psychological warfare.
Very practical effects. Psychological warfare. Warfare. Also, the fact that like Sting as a character was really like in terms of gimmicks was the first wrestling vigilante. It wasn't like a supernatural character or an agent of chaos type character. This guy was a straight up vigilante Batman style character, so he was just fucking repelling all over the arena,
utilizing technology,
knocking off the lights, like just doing cool Batman shit,
literally doing Batman
or Crow shit is more appropriate.
But Ultimate Warrior kind of delves into that supernatural element where he's like
in the mirror.
In the mirror. You have like the Hogan, like having his own head.
That's the nonsense.
That was really weird.
I find it's a lot of that stuff is like, so in that stuff, that's like Bischoff thinking he's some TV guru and he knows how to produce stuff. And similarly, a lot of the WWE stuff probably goes back to Kevin Dunn a little bit, thinking he's this production guru.
Oh yeah, just shit taste all around.
But they're not thinking about the world that it's in and how that affects everything else.
That's what I'm going to get at. Does it... For me, it kind of does. Like, it takes away from the rest of the product. If you have a Dan Severn or a Ken Shamrock who are legit badasses, and then on the same episode, I know it's not supernatural, but you have Mae Young giving birth to a hand, or you have some weird occult supernatural stuff. Like, how do Dan Severn and Ken Shamrock fit into that world?
Well, Mae Young in hand could be logical. We don't know the science.
But that was the most ridiculous thing that came to my head.
I don't know.
Are we terming that as supernatural?
Yeah.
She gave birth to a hand, John.
Okay,
the hand run, does the hand like Adam's Family, little hand that runs away?
No, it was a big rubber hand.
Oh, so
didn't it grow up to be? It
was featured in a vignette years later, and it's kind of like a wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But you're like, I don't really need that.
It's kind of cool. It's like the way the Undertaker evolved, and in the Attitude Era, he was still employing a lot of like dark tech, like flaming symbols or whatever. But it wasn't like everything could be explained by fire.
Like, and also at that point as well, like he's got the tenure.
Yeah.
Everyone knows him on the team. He's well respected. If he goes here,
he's a locker room leader.
Here, can I just give you this? Look at that timestamp there, and just knock out the lights for me. And if you can just put a few flames down below,
can you give us
and he gives him a fucking few bob, mixer.
Can you send electric bolts outside of my arse when
so I'm going to electrify you, lad, there.
Yeah, exactly. Can I get Vince McMahon's limo keys, please, so I can be in the driver's seat when Stephanie gets in?
And can we get 2 different camera angles on that, please?
I hate that.
I hate that.
That's another thing,
Perspective. Like, there was one with Kevin Owens a few years ago where he got a pie thrown in his face. So you could see the pie, and then we saw from Kevin's perspective with the pie coming in, and you're like, what the fuck was that? And then Kevin Owens referenced it. He was like, and they got cameras in my eyes, they see, and you're just like,
it's like the shots in Buried Alive matches. Then when the Undertaker's hand comes up through the soil, and you're going like, he's probably backstage with the fucking crew in the truck, and he's probably going, here, look, if I get buried, there's a chance. I'm going to try my best. I'm going to get the hand.
The actual hand.
I'm going to try and get me paw up anyway, and just have a camera on it just in case.
The actual thing, the idea of getting his hand up, like, you're like, okay, I can believe that. He's just
Yeah,
been
it's
buried
like
alive. It's cool. But then the lightning bolts, you're like, oh, what the fuck?
I don't know. Like it's not much of a muchness really. He's coming up from a pile of soil that some lad has
It's
put
kind
him
of like
under.
he's like a magician,
Or-
like he's more like a
master
like
of
a wrestling
it's all
David
illusion.
Copperfield.
Yeah, like it's illusion, it's smoke and mirrors, but like you can kind of
like
think he's
Cody Rhodes
he's
smoking mirrors.
capable of a. Zeus. I didn't
Remember Cody did try like kind of vaguely Phantom of the Opera themed gimmick at one point.
He had
With the mask.
With the undashing.
Well, on dashing, he
I
went a
love
bit
that.
crazy. That was cool.
That's peak Cody Rhodes.
Not quite supernatural
you.
leaning, but like definitely riffing off a very kind of dark character.
Yeah, living in the shadows of the arena.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But like the whole supernatural thing, you generally associate with the Undertaker, but I don't associate a lot of the stupid. To be honest, not until after he finished the American Badass run did like a load of stupid supernatural shit.
If we were to go in chronological order, after the Undertaker, who's kind of the next?
Kane,
The most successful
Kane.
one is obviously Kane, which again is like a version of The Undertaker, but it's more of a kind of Jason Voorhees,
Red.
Michael Myers
More
style
red.
character. An excellent fucking gimmick that,
Yeah.
like,
I think he really hit his stride in 03 when he started electrocuting people's testicles.
Yeah, well,
good bit. Yeah.
But like that is a good bit, I thought.
Now,
It did-
he was definitely tired out by, you know, to 2010 when he had his like only significant world title run. That really felt like the end of Kane.
Corporate
We
Kane
didn't
was
need
my
corporate
favourite
Kane.
Kane.
Mystique is gone. The Mystique's been gone ever since, to
But
be
if-
honest, with Kane.
Knoxville County.
If Kane electrified Shane McMahon's testicles with his hands, like with electric bolts, like Undertaker can fire fucking lightning bolts out of his hands. If he did that, I'd be saying this is stupid. But he did it on a logic base, going, "I'm going to put a car battery on this man's testicles."
yeah, but
'Cause
Kane
I'm
can
a fucking
fire.
psychopath.
Kane can bring fire from the turnbuckles.
posts,
Yeah,
yeah.
the ring posts.
Yeah, he's definitely got a friend on the Pyro team.
100%.
exactly.
100%.
And your man's probably on a retainer
actually-
every week or something.
His name is fucking Dale.
I have a pyro license.
God damn it, Dale! You missed it.
There's a Dale and catering, so they call this that Fire Dale.
Exactly. Remember when Undertaker caught fire from his entrance?
Yeah,
For real.
Kane's pyro guy.
Not so
Morton's.
supernatural now, are you? Where's your powers of rain?
repellent.
Bring Glacier here.
Yeah.
So these supernatural,
Glacier.
supernatural. I think we're all in agreement as long as it's somewhat logic based.
Yeah.
Like if you don't have fucking characters like the zombie in ECW
Or
show,
RoboCop
Robo,
And they're-
yeah.
I-
He
Like,
was
they're-
supernatural. He's a
or-
crime fighting
from the
robot.
future.
Or-
From
or
the past, but
Chucky.
it's the future.
Or Chucky in WCW
Retro future.
when he showed up.
He didn't wrestle though, was he? Was
Yeah,
he
but
in the
no,
minis
but
division?
he was showing up, and Rick Steiner was getting pissed off at this fucking movie tie-in. You're like,
about-
why
Wouldn't
is
say
this?
much for Rick Steiner to be pissed off.
that's okay.
Yeah.
What about
Acceptable.
when Miz and was it Priest had the zombie match?
That was the worst thing that I've ever seen in my
That
life.
was the worst.
Shocking.
But this comes after the Firefly Funhouse, which I'm going to get into.
Yeah, but
because
also
I
the-
genuinely hate that.
But the zombie thing is double shite because it was also an advert for something, wasn't it?
Army of the
some
Dead.
movie
Yeah,
or
so it's
But
like
then you had the Muppets tie-in that happened in 2009, and then you
Seamus.
have Seamus with fucking.
that's okay. That's comedy.
Shane, I gotta break it to you. The Muppets are not supernatural. Do you believe these are they're real creatures that exist on the
They're
earth?
supernatural.
no,
They are. Like, you know,
Shane, oh man, who's gonna
Dude.
break
how
them?
can a Muppet have a fucking conscience?
Whoa,
Yeah,
Jesus, that went deeper than I thought it would go.
exactly. You prove their existence.
Yeah, they're all real. They're all real, buddy.
It's all real.
But there are kind of like supernatural tinged gimmicks. Then, like, would you consider Hakushi a supernatural gimmick?
I consider Hakushi a waste of talent.
That's fair.
Well, you ragging on the man? You just ragging on his usage in WWE?
Usage in WWE.
Oh, thank God.
Yeah,
the man
that's
looks
fair.
exactly the same as he did
Okay,
back
let's-
then as well.
yeah,
Like,
what
he looks
about-
fantastic.
What about PCO, the wrestling Frankenstein?
That was supernatural. Yeah,
Is it?
had
Yeah.
to be. Yeah,
That's down to his, it's
Longevity.
it's a symbology of his resurrection as a wrestler in his 50s, and
Yeah.
also his high tolerance for pain.
I get like.
He's not literally saying he's dead, though.
I'm not
He's
actually a
dead.
Frankenstein.
But from a production point of view, I seen something where he showed up at TNA there a while ago, and it just looked terrible. Like, just
thought-
make him this fucking absolute monster that he is. Have him take pain, but you don't need the weird supernatural shit around him.
I'm a mark
Because-
for PCO.
Yeah, but so am I. But it's, in my opinion, and this harpens back, says, to the Hell in a Cell. Remember when it was tinged in red?
the worst. That was one of the worst.
When they
things I've
color
ever
it,
seen.
and I'm like, okay, PCO or the Fiend, they're scarier in our world than putting us in their world. If you get me.
They're scary now.
Like if you're
Yeah,
Well,
so in reality,
yeah.
if there's a Freddy Krueger running around in that reality, and I know he's based in people's dreams or whatever, not really, like the Muppets, but
So you're telling me Freddy
Thank
Krueger's
Christ.
not
Does
Would
real?
they have a
Krueger's-
conscience?
but like Michael Myers and Jason and stuff, put them in the real world. That's scary. You go to their world, it from a human point of view, you can't really resonate with
I
that
agree
type
with
of
that.
horror.
That's a good point.
I think
it's like the early Bray, the cult figure for me is scarier
yes,
than
that's the thing, and I think
because it's more rooted in reality.
because cults are real.
Exactly.
That was some like real true detective shit, like, you know what I mean?
And it was such a revelation to see that at the time, because like we'd seen such hokey supernatural stuff, and for so long with the Wyatt family, when they debuted, it seemed like, oh, they're going to do this right. It's going to be a proper occult-themed Manson-esque fucking bunch of bionic fucking hillbillies wreaking havoc. And then it started getting into you are ghosts. A small child is fucking programmed by you. Televisions explode. You can materialize wherever you want. You're like fucking Padre Pio going around the place.
They fucked him with the Ring of Fire immediately, putting him with Kane. Like, if you go with Kane, that's fine, but then throwing him in a Ring of Fire match, I thought fucked him. And they fucked him at every opportunity.
But would you say then
check out our Bray Wyatt documentary.
Would you say we're kind of fucked then already with the Monday night show with the Wyatt?
No, because so getting back to this,
because we were in there, we went in and it was all red and it was like it was kind of their world,
but also it was rooted in a real thing, which like
is what.
Which they went through gorilla position. They had these guys flickering and stuff.
Yeah, and you can see all the little Easter eggs of them appearing like in the building in the night. They were coming in,
and they brought a smoke machine.
Everyone knows who they are, and what you've got is a faction who weeks in advance. You can play with the different kind of levels to this, but it works on a couple. You got a faction who weeks in advance have told the roster that they're coming. Anybody who's following the codes or looking at all the details are going to know exactly when it's going to happen. This faction show up with their fucking spooky mask and their spooky effects, and they wreck the backstage area, and then they come out to the crowd and they introduce themselves. That's great business so far. It's rooted in the idea of them kind of having to break into the arena. Plays the trepidation of what's going to be like with them backstage.
I enjoyed it, but I'm just saying is it kind of counter to Shane's point? Is that not their world?
I think they're coming into this world.
They're leaking through.
I think so whatever is going on in their own personal, they're coming. That's what makes it scary. They can't. You've seen them in gorilla position, and we are now really accustomed with the gorilla position. They showed it on that night when Triple H was trying to stop Drew, and he went and chased him. Yeah. That was a conscious thing. That was cool. And then we seen it in complete disarray. So we seen something that we have associated within a normal context completely fucking ruined because of these people.
Yeah, and also one thing that's very telling about the assembly of that faction, and apparently it was the planned assembly for a long time, and this I think is a very useful thing to consider just in terms of like the long-term storytelling and Triple H particularly, and even Shawn Michaels to a degree, how they focus on that. Every single wrestler that's in that group has done some variation of a maybe supernatural tinged gimmicks. You got Dexter Loomis.
Certainly dark gimmicks. Yeah.
Dark gimmicks, I know, for sure.
Dexter Loomis, whose gimmick is effectively wrestling serial killer. You've got Nikki Cross, who's been insane from day one. As a faction member of Sanity, who's always been on the edge of like a completely different reality. Then you've got Joe Gacy, who had his own cult effectively in NXT.
His surname is Gacy.
Yeah, you've got Rowan, who's fucking old stock of the Wyatt family. Yeah. And then you've got Bo Dallas, who hasn't done anything really supernatural, but look, he's Bray's brother. Everyone's going to fucking point it.
He did the Howdy stuff towards the end of Bray's career, so he's still...
He did, and he was
I have two questions. Kayfabe. Are they contracted WWE wrestlers?
Yeah.
Kayfabe. What is the consequences of them attacking everyone and wrecking the place?
We'll find out tonight.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say they're contracted kayfabe WWE wrestlers.
So then if they're not contracted, it automatically, logically becomes nonsense.
Because we've been watching them all for the past few months, literally hacking the internal systems, as opposed to, like, I get what you're saying, because the Shield, when they...
Well, they could be contracted and still be hacking. Yeah. They'd have all the internal access codes.
Like, the Shield were meant to be these mercenary badass people, or the outsiders coming through the crowd initially, you know what I mean? So they were part of WWE.
The outsiders were proven to have been signed, I don't the only ones that really felt like they weren't coming in untethered, I thought, were like the Nexus. I think what's a way more interesting storyline to do, and maybe it's something they might lean into because I think they should, is the idea that Triple H has, because of Bray Wyatt's past and gone, hey, we'd love to do something in tribute to him, bring his brother back, and then basically sign these.
He injected his lethal poison.
The lethal poison is in Bray. He's done it accidentally because it's preying on everyone's sympathies for Bray and everyone in the backstage area, and then all of a sudden they wreak havoc, and everyone's going, "Oh, of course it was going to be like this." What the fuck?
Blame Triple H and vote him out. Give him a lack of
confidence.
Unsafe working space.
Are they heels?
They can't be right now. They just can't be.
Well, like at the time of recording, they've only appeared once. So we do not know.
I think
we do not know.
They only attacked heels, though, didn't they? They only attacked heels.
Chad Gable. I think they're going to be kind of in the middle line, but I think they're going to veer towards
Vigilante. Veer Man is coming.
He's coming.
He's coming again.
He is coming.
That's going to be a weekly thing.
I think they're definitely going to be. It's hard to present them as heels right now because
sympathy and.
Are they going to be vigilantes?
I think the idea that their gimmick is that they only come for people who have betrayed family or friends is just a wonderful, unique,
Who's next?
never before done, really clear lines wrestling gimmick.
Yeah,
that's their thing.
Who does that?
Yeah.
Triple H betrayed his family.
Triple H is fucked. Like
took the job of his father-in-law.
Are they going to show up in AEW if Shane McMahon shows there? He betrayed the McMahon name.
AEW hasn't done a lot of supernatural gimmicks. We've had
Matt fucking Hardy,
Abaddon, Michael Nakazawa,
Matt Hardy,
Brandon Cutler.
Yeah, the
librarian.
The most interesting one they did, really, the kind of tinge on a little bit was maybe Dark Order. Like the whole gimmick terrible. There is really. I love the Dark Order. Like the idea that it's a bunch of incels, and then they got this absolute alpha as their leader.
That was cool. I love that.
That was really well done.
Dark Order were
vaguely supernatural.
House of Black are kind of supernatural.
They're like they're the local gods.
The lights turn off.
They're hanging around.
They're doing their business, and if you get in their way, that's your problem.
And Matt Hardy during the arena match, he fucked the whole thing up.
Transforming.
He actually teleported, and he's got a robot assisting him.
Yes,
that's on another level.
He fell into a fountain of youth there in the Jacksonville Jaguar Stadium.
Oh yeah. And he came back on his
Adam Copeland was banging his missus as well.
Yeah.
Ooh.
That was a thing that happened.
He actually fell into the lake of reincarnation, and they brought him back to that exact moment when he found out.
Oh, nice.
So he went back in again.
And then his wife keeps ragging on him on Instagram all the time.
Yeah, life's tough for Matt Hardy.
This is the thing. I think there's a correlation between the brutality of his personal life and
then when she puts up stuff, he just says delete it, please. Delete.
He's still doing the gimmick in 2024.
Matt Hardy is kind of in that.
I like the outside box thinking.
There was really inventive stuff, but it went so supernatural, and it wasn't that kind of. When we were talking about the Warrior showing up in WCW in 1998, you got this character who, for their entire career, and it's so well established, they are not supernatural. We know they don't have powers, and then they suddenly develop powers. It's not like starting like the Undertaker or Kane or even Shango or the Boogeyman.
But see,
you were showing it from ground zero, just doing the weirdest, freakiest shit. All of a sudden, you expect like Matt Hardy's able to fucking like teleport and
just kind of
conjure demons.
WWE did it. Remember, I know two characters that you wouldn't think are supernatural. I suppose one of them, Carlito and Hornswoggle. Do you remember they did that thing where Hornswoggle spray painted a tunnel on a wall and ran through it, and then Carlito ran into the wall, and you're just like,
but they do that with they do that with comedy stuff a lot in WWE.
Yeah,
that doesn't really make sense. Vince.
There's nothing funny about the supernatural.
But no, what's interesting is that you don't like the stuff that kind of affects the production, the realism of production within the universe that's already established, and yet you love cinematic matches. Which for me takes you out of...
I love cinematic matches. I love when they're shot like a fight. I love when they're shot like They Live.
Well, you love AJ.
Roddy Piper.
You love AJ and Undertaker.
I do love...
that had some nonsense shots that wouldn't really make sense.
I don't know. I like the idea that like, all right, here's the place you're going to fight, and we've got about 20 cameras on you.
That's cool if they establish it that way. But
I suppose that's also...
They had like the view thing where didn't they have that with AJ where the camera is kind of on Undertaker?
No, the camera basically...
It's like the cameraman kills AJ.
The camera is on AJ, and then the Undertaker appears behind him. Is that what you're talking about? But the Undertaker was meant to be in the grave. And that is a jump of logic right there. Well, I think the actual match in itself, for what it was cool. But just suppose that to the Firefly Funhouse when they're literally going to different dimensions. And then they have
the swamp one.
And then, the swamp where Alexa Bliss shows up as a fuck. But
that was terrible.
The Firefly Funhouse with John Cena and Bray Wyatt, when they're going to different dimensions, how are you meant to take Brock Lesnar and Drew McIntyre seriously?
Do you think that could be...
They're literally fighting in front of no one anyway. So.
But do you think that could just be Bray heading down to production into the editing room?
With John Cena and writing it out with him? Because that's what it is.
Drugging John Cena, editing him up, making him look kind of funny, and then saying, there's the match. That's the match, Vince.
No, if they established that Bray Wyatt was going around drugging people,
and editing footage.
Or if it was a thing where Cena they actually could have built that, right? In a way where...
Do tell.
Cena goes to Bray Wyatt for
Help.
Psychotherapy.
Yeah.
And this is the outcome of their
Well,
psychotherapy.
they
also
did it with
imagine-
Dr. Stevie in Abyss or something.
But I with that one with Bray Wyatt, I'm like, that's a co-worker who's come up to you and he's gone, oh look, we can have a match now. Would we make a film together? And Cena's like, yeah, right. And he's like, look, this is what I'm going to do. Think about the film. It's kind of like a video essay. You know what I mean? It's like a video essay with like the two of us. We talk about our careers. And then like,
And Tina at the time was like, I'm trying to break into Hollywood. This could be a really good showreel.
Showreel material, John. Yeah. And then just as they're making, he fucking bops him and
Cena,
pins him.
you wouldn't
like that.
You wouldn't try on this outfit for a sec, would you? Why? Don't worry. He edits all this edit footage. Cena thinks it's a completely different movie.
But like, say they shot it almost.
I love that. That's great.
Not
Yeah.
shot it almost, but say, remember when Edge and Randy Orton had that match at that WrestleMania? No, not.
No, it was
a different.
the greatest match ever.
No. Remember the one where they were fighting all around the building?
That was the greatest match ever.
Yeah.
Could have
No,
been,
that wasn't the greatest match
It could have
ever.
been their interminable WrestleMania match that year.
That was it.
that's
That was it.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
was
It
it.
Was
wasn't
that the greatest
never
match ever? No.
No, that was
Oh.
like that was a month or two
But
later.
say if they did
Later.
that, if they
Even
did that,
later.
but almost like a Crystal Maze or a Saw fucking thing, where every place that John Cena goes is a different part of Bray's psyche. So the room is fucking set up to look like that. If you get me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Bray has got in a costume.
Like
or,
he
a
comes
big
into
budget-
the
a
Firefly
big
Fun.
budget
He
set
comes into the
department.
Firefly Funhouse set, and that happens. And then he walks out a door, and he comes in, and it's SmackDown, the old SmackDown thing, and he's like, "What the fuck?" And
like,
then he
as-
sees an NWO top, and he
As
suddenly
a
gets
20-minute retrospective of like a 20-minute LSD retrospective of John Cena's career, the Firefly Funhouse was deadly.
I thought it was a vibe, yeah.
But like for WrestleMania match, it's terrible.
Well,
It's
just
not
for
a
the
match.
universe,
It's
it's
not.
not. Yeah, it's a video essay.
It's an exhibition.
I
It's
love
a
it.
student video essay.
It's a student film.
Yeah.
Yeah, a really good one.
that you make about your co-workers when
His
the
opus.
entire world gets shut in because of a pandemic.
You said something there. You mentioned the Firefly Funhouse. Again, when that first came, I loved it because it seemed to be rooted in reality. It was like a backstage segment where Bray
Yeah,
had,
no, that's cool.
and it was perfect. There was no supernatural stuff, and then there was, and then I was,
Yeah.
then I was
I'll
done.
give you. Remember that promo that I shot for myself, right? So I'm editing that, right, and I'm like, okay, the actual backstory of this video is the guy that's meant to have these split personalities just sitting there editing himself to make himself look cool. And
Yeah.
I was like, that's what all wrestling videos are.
You should have shot
Yeah.
yourself editing it.
Yeah, and just be like, cut this, and we'll put it in. And I come up, I said I came up with the idea.
We're making our own Firefly Funhouse.
You should just never speak.
Like I thought another occult character, and going back a while, but we've recently seen him, is Gangrel. I thought the Brood,
Love that.
the Brood was cool.
I mean, if you look at the Big Boss Man at WrestleMania 15, like
Getting hung.
three of your co-workers who present as vampires have hung you from a giant
He's probably
cage structure.
acclaiming it.
But
Was
it
that
was
definitely
no,
acclaiming it?
No,
No, it was a symbol. Was that what Cole kept saying? It's symbolic. It's
Yeah, he's
symbolic.
not actually hanging them.
Well, you could clearly see he was hanging on the back.
Yeah.
Of his.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Like,
it was
what were they going
symbolic.
to do if Bossman didn't lose that match? Who were they going to hang? Like, but that was, I mean, there you go,
weren't
a
going
bunch
to
of
hang the
bunch of
Undertaker.
vampires. That's a gimmick. That's definitely supernatural.
And they
thing.
tried it with Kevin Thorne, who was previously Mordecai. And I
Yeah.
thought Mordecai had legs as a potential.
Mordecai was, what was he, kind of a warlock of sorts?
Warlock.
He was Wonder Boy. That's who Tenacious D were singing about.
some manner of wrestling sorcerer.
But I thought he would have been a great foil for The Undertaker.
Yeah.
This was around when
White-
Hayden Vanson was
White-
before
Yeah,
his
Black.
he was been built up, but then he got in some kind of bar fight and he got shit canned for ages.
Is that what happened?
Yeah, big bar fight. I think he really fucked some dude up. And
What
there
about
was
Dan Spivey?
Dan Spivey as Wail and Mercy is the OG Bray Wyatt. Not supernatural tinged, but like
But what Bray Wyatt should have been.
Yes, cult thing.
Must have been influenced
Bray Wyatt
by-
was very much influenced him. But this kind of idea of the soft spoken Baptist kind of Southern preacher kind of, you know,
What was,
Robert Mitchum, Night of the Hunter vibes.
Yeah.
Or,
Oh, nice.
Max
Max
Cady,
Can-
Max Cady and fucking
Yeah. What
Cape
was
Fear.
Dan Spivey's tag team with Scott Hall?
Skyscrapers?
No, Scott Hall.
Yeah,
Now you're the real word. Were they in the real? No, Dan Spivey was with Stan Hansen in that.
he broke in with Scott Hall as a tag team. I
Dan
think.
Spivey, he was in a couple of different tag teams. He was
Yeah.
with the Undertaker. No, was it Sid?
He was in the Skyscrapers with Taker and Sid. I think.
Taker and Sid, yeah. And then he also he replaced Barry Windham in the US Express when he first left.
And then he tagged with
he
Stan
was
Hansen and went against Terry Gordy.
But coincidentally, when he tagged with when he joined the
Dr.
US
Beck.
Express, he was with Mike Rotundo, who was Bray Wyatt's dad.
Oh wow!
So like Bray's Bray was watching Dance
and
Spivey
accountant.
from a young age, and then obviously then when the Whale of Mercy character, which was one of the best fucking mid-90s gimmicks that WWF came up with.
Much better than Mantor, much better than Friar Ferguson.
Like 95 was the worst
Do you know
year
what
that
it
they
was?
ever had for gimmicks,
it
but
was,
that character was so unsettling and so
Cape Fear.
real. It was Cape Fear.
It was
Yeah.
Cape Fear.
Yeah.
But the idea of this kind of this wrestler who comes down, he's a heel, but he's lovely.
Yeah.
He's shaking hands with everyone. He's real nice to his opponent before the match, real nice to the referee, real soft spoken, a nice drawl.
And they tried to
And
recreate
then the bell
that.
rings and he just goes
They
nuts.
tried to recreate that with Festus.
Festus.
Yeah, which kind of makes sense. It
That
could
was
be rooted in reality.
But that was retconned very nicely by CM Punk when Festus joined the Straight Edge Society and became Luke Gallows.
Yeah.
Where he said this guy was on so much prescription drugs.
so good.
Which was a great thing
Yeah.
for a get out of jail card
And it's a
gimmick in
great
wrestling.
bit of logic.
Yeah,
And you're
it's
like,
like
oh,
straight
right,
edge
I get
Society
that
as well.
now.
Yeah.
I got him off the drugs.
Yeah,
got him
I
off the
get
drugs.
that. That's
I saved
that's
it.
Perfect.
fantastic.
Was Doink supernatural?
Should have been, if you ask me. I would have liked to see that clown now do
Was-
all the
did he-
fucking
did he-
freaky
did he do
Pennywise
it?
shit possible at
And
some
did he,
point.
but did he do anything supernatural?
No, he never got to that point. I think Matt Bourne could have pulled it off. I think definitely darker shades of Doink.
But like, if
darker
there was
shades of
two,
Doink.
if there was two, when they did the two Doinks, like that looked.
I will.
Cool. It wasn't supernatural, but it was like, this is fucked up.
and the mini Doinks?
I will contend that like one of the best versions of Doink, if I'm kind of fantasy booking that in a more supernatural way, like more supernatural, more realistic, going into the late 90s, like Doink in 98, 99 with as the leader of the Oddities or some version of the Oddities,
Oh, nice.
where he's got
Yeah.
this entire freak show circus
Yeah.
of performers, just
Yeah.
fucking.
It's
He's him up
basically-
against the
wearing,
Ministry
like,
of
basically
Darkness.
Penguin in Batman
Yeah.
Returns.
Yeah.
Like,
Doink-
Dungeon
Nice.
of Doom.
Yeah.
Get
I think a late night if Matt Bourne had cleaned up his act and he did something like the Born Again gimmick that he did in ECW, which was kind of a split personality where he kept lapsing into like him as he was in the 80s, early 90s, and then fucking Doink. And then he did a kind of Heath Ledger. Well, he was a bit old and broken down at that point, but he did a Heath Ledger version of Doink in the late 2000s, early 2010s, in the years before he died. If he just kept his shit together, he could have done some really interesting stuff with Doink that could have veered more into like occultist.
Veer.
Also, people are fucking afraid of clowns. Like genuinely afraid of clowns. There's so much you could do with that
Look at,
in
look at
wrestling.
the
Like,
Insane Clown Posse. CM Punk
No,
was shitting in his
not quite
britches.
as scary, but
I've been called out there recently. When you're looking at say Bray Wyatt's, because he's the most recent supernatural person, and you hear people talking about how they didn't want to work with him because they didn't want to get dragged into that stuff. Like he wasn't
Lesnar.
he
The Lesnar
purported to
thing.
be with Brock Lesnar, and they was like, I don't want to do that stuff.
Remember what happened to Seth Rollins after their Hell in a Cell match?
But what I liked about the Fiend in its like they fucking completely jumped the shark, John Tenta. But what I liked about the Fiend in itself was that everyone he went against ultimately turned dark. So Rollins went into his Monday Night Messiah gimmick. Finn Balor turned into the Prince X thing, and there was a lot of people turning. Goldberg didn't, but there was a lot of people turning after their interactions with Bray. So there was still that.
I think what happened there though is because
they got fucked so bad as a face.
They got fucked so bad as a face. Had nothing to do with their interactions with Bray on a kayfabe level. Is that
but
the audience could no longer believe in them as a babyface?
But Bray against
Seth Rollins was crying in the corner.
Yeah, but
of the ring.
he forced Seth Rollins to, go to a different part of his psyche to go up against him because he was going to smash his head in with a fucking
Giant
mallet.
hammer.
But
In a red.
that's why I still kind of liked about Bray. But with characters refusing to work with him, you'd think that has to be this cop on. If Brock Lesnar was like, I don't want to get dragged, this is going to ruin my mystique.
Yeah.
See, that's my worry with the Wyatt Six coming in now.
if it becomes hokey, it will be that.
I know, but I just WWE have made such a concerted effort over the last 2 years to have a more realistic presentation.
But this is the first faction under this tenure where things have been presented in a realistic, logical way. That's why I feel we can be excited about it. You don't have someone who booked himself to wrestle God. You know what I mean? You have competent
That's-
people.
Triple H
That-
would
but
have booked himself as God.
That stuff is hokey. I think what's more interesting in a wrestling context is, my coworkers are psychopaths. My coworkers are interested in some really fucking gnarly shit. My coworkers are into psychological mind games to win matches.
Do you think that kind of thing can work though, given the complete lack of kayfabe in modern wrestling. Like, we've already seen the picture of them all and
we discussed this. We discussed this about Adam Cole playing his video games and then making him be a dickhead and stuff.
Yeah, like Adam Cole is notoriously the nicest guy in the world.
But this is.
Are you saying that they shouldn't eat? Like these scary characters still might need to eat.
Yeah,
they shouldn't be eating burgers. They should be eating.
They can eat
really
whatever. They're like a biker gang. But it's like a bank heist, and you fucking do it, and then you get out, you get back to basic. We did it.
But
we
this,
fucking
we
destroyed. What's going to happen next?
That's the route to go. Like, it genuinely is. Like, make them a fucking like a venue invasion faction who come in and wreak havoc, and then
they get
out of the building before anyone manages to challenge them for the match.
Like the Undertaker and Paul Bear, they used to riding around in a hearse together. Traveling from town to town, apparently. That's keeping kayfabe. But the thing is,
that seems totally unnecessary.
But it doesn't, because you're just saying
how else are we going to get the coffin from town to town?
So when you see the Undertaker and Paul Bear in the 90s, you're like,
they're carpenter driving a hearse.
They're living their gimmick. Like, is that the type of level of kayfabe you want? Do you not want Hacksaw and Iron Sheik whacking coke out of it while they're driving and meant to be feuding together?
You know, even to this day, Britt Baker still does a couple of days a week as a dentist. You know what I mean? What's to say that the Undertaker, and particularly Paul Bearer, who was a certified mortician in real life, we're not doing a few nixers on the road.
On the road, yeah. Show up in a town.
You got a hearse, you got a coffin.
Following ambulances.
Yeah.
I'd love to see the statue of Paul Bearer. You know, after he got encased in
cement.
But what, that's on us for not separating the real world with the fictional world.
Can I ask you all a question? I think this is an interesting one in the context of this conversation. But if everybody maybe has one answer for this, like, what is a time in wrestling where you were genuinely scared by something you saw?
And not a spot, like...
No,
like, as in, like, someone lands on their neck, you're like, holy shit.
No, but, like, with spooky shit. I definitely felt, with the reveal of the Wyatt Six on Raw, that Nikki Cross crawling out was definitely one of the spookiest things I'd seen in a long time in wrestling.
And I love the way... we talk about being predisposed to Sting and the Crow character. Like, I remember growing up watching The Ring and that girl calling out the well. Is it The Ring or The Grudge or one of them crawling out the well? That's immediately what it came to, and you're like, oh, you get shudder.
It's the stuff that kind of taps into your subconscious, or like the way you watch horror movies and the fears you feel. I mean, Kane certainly had that for like the first year or so of his existence.
Younger then.
That was the thing. The idea of this unrelenting, unstoppable monster.
I think Mankind scared me as a kid.
Mankind spooked me.
Because I actually wasn't sure what was real and what wasn't, because they were kind of describing
he's the greatest performer ever.
It's based in reality. He's like, this person fucking lives.
So as a kid, and they were describing like what his backstory and stuff, and I was like, that all sounds really real. Like, what is the story?
But I also think that's also down to the genius of Mick Foley as a performer. It's similar to the way the Undertaker operated. Like, if bad wrestlers had got those gimmicks, like
wouldn't worked. Would have been another Mick Foley list of mid-90s crap.
Like, the thing that really worked about Mankind in that regard is that, like, if you were a viewer who'd never heard of Mick Foley or Cactus Jack and you looked at Mankind, you would take that character on face value, and it would be a very well drawn fucking character. But also, if you were familiar with Mick Foley, he worked it in a way where you could completely buy that, like,
this is how
shit has happened to Mick Foley in the last year or two, and now this is what he's turned into.
And you can actually see that shit happening, and then more shit happening to him
He kind of did a bit of a dry run of it after he had the concussion in was it the Vader or Sting match in like 92, 93 WCW?
When he lost the ear?
No, he got a concussion, I think, against Sting on the outside, and he disappeared. Like, obviously concussion, he was gone for a month or two, and he came back, and they did this really weird reintroduction.
Where is Cactus Jack?
Where is Cactus Jack? And then they find him in a mental home with amnesia and stuff, you know? Like, it was a bit weird, didn't really work, but it was like A+ for effort there, lads. You were trying to do something a bit...
It completely tees up the Mankind character. And I think even Mick's other characters, there was like good psychological reasons for those characters to exist.
Stuff was unbelievable as well.
But Dude Love was also this idea of like this guy in his mid-30s who was role-playing this teen idol fantasy he had for himself, which is completely deluded. And that character actually weirdly worked so much better as a as a heel than he did as a face. 'Cause as a heel, there was actually proper like Charles Manson overtones to it as well.
I'm worried about this guy.
Yeah, I'm really worried about this guy.
And like Cactus Jack, when he came as that, and the way Triple H sold it, he was like, "Holy shit, I'm going up against Cactus Jack."
Yeah.
It goes to show that there's differences.
As a kid, I was like, "Who the fuck is Cactus Jack?"
It goes to show that there's differences in the personality, which ties me into Finn Balor and the Demon.
Oh, we never spoke of that.
Yeah, right. Because while the Demon looks cool. And, you know, he's spending 8 hours to get all the paint on him or whatever. Well, the Demon looks cool. There's no identifiable distinguishment between the way the
There's
Demon
no lore.
the way Finn Balor and the Demon work. They work
What
exactly.
brings out the
They're
Demon?
meant to say, "Oh, he's more aggressive," and I was like, "No, the style is the exact same.
Yeah, I
There's
don't
nothing
see
different. He doesn't have a sweet shin music. He doesn't have a double arm DDT. He doesn't have the mandible claw, which are the distinguishable
He crawls to the
finishers."
ring.
There's a different. What I will say for that is that his whole logic within that gimmick is he's going, "This is war paint," and it draws out my version of like the fucking warrior demon Balor.
That's the thing. It doesn't. He wrestles the same way.
Yeah, but I feel like
I feel he's a
there's
bit
a
more
different
aggressive.
demeanor. I feel like he's more aggressive with that. That logic works to me, and particularly when you
Not
go,
for me.
"Hey, he's not literally becoming a demon, but also he gets into a completely different mindset than he would in any other match."
I'm with Shane on this one. I think he needed to do more to be physically different in the ring
Yeah.
with his moveset or whatever.
Like he still had the coup de grace, which is probably one of the weakest finishers I think that you could have for a demon. I know he's coming down maybe from the.
What's he gonna do? You gonna fucking eat him?
Yeah, eat him. Do a fucking venom on it.
But I always thought it was just, but they never really explain it. Was like, oh, this is something cool he did near the end in Japan or something.
no, all he did in Japan was he just
put on face paint.
Put on paint. Like,
Yeah,
He
but
puts
that's
on
all he
paint.
did.
He goes to war. I don't
that's-
see the
but
problem.
that's
with
all
it.
he
So it's
did.
not supernatural then.
no,
Well,
no,
he beat him
in
with
New
the banner.
Japan it wasn't. He just put on paint for war.
But that's
started
all he
with
did. That's all he did
WWE.
in NXT.
In NXT, that he kept that going. But
Yeah.
then when he got to main roster,
He kept it going again.
Vince was thinking
Merchandise.
merchandise.
I'm going to put him up against
But
Bray
still,
Wyatt.
there was no lore,
dressing
there
as
was no-
Sister
there was no
Abigail.
explanation.
I challenge
pumpkin.
all of you, right? Why don't we just all put on paint here right now, and let's see if at least we just get a little bit bolshier. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
maybe
Paint
we'll get a bit
party,
more
Or you
aggro.
don't drink 10 pints and put on a bucket
Go
of face paint.
into town face paint.
Yeah, then see.
I bought that with Balor. I mean, if it kind of did lean into that Vince McMahon thing of going, he is a literal demon.
Yeah.
Which Vince nuked every supernatural
He's a
gimmick.
little cash cow
And
as well,
also,
Vince
they
thought.
did something stupid with the demon that kind of killed it as well, was it? I don't know.
when
They
you said-
advertised it like a month in advance before the feud started. that he
Yeah.
was
Oh,
going
it's
to be the
almost like
demon.
I'm showing up as the demon, and you're like,
Remember they
oh, yeah.
advertised a
Show up all the time
and
as
it,
the demon.
it never happened. It was the demon Balor versus Sister Abigail.
Was it not
Yeah.
Pumpkin Balor? He was dressed like a pumpkin.
Yeah, that was on
Did
the graphic. It was
Yeah,
like
he was like
a
it was like
pumpkin.
That
pumpkin
sounds very
demon.
scary. I don't know if
It was going to be on Halloween.
Was it not rumored that Alexa Bliss is going to be in this new faction?
Well, it's the Wyatt Six.
Are you scared of Alexa
And
Bliss?
she hasn't shown up, or did she just have a child? And
Am I scared of Alexa
shoot
Bliss?
child?
Is there something about
In
Alexa
kayfabe.
Bliss and the way she sits on that swing?
I think that she.
scares you.
I kind of find it hard to see where she goes as a. Now that she has done supernatural shit,
What
she
can she do
always
now?
has to be supernatural in some way.
I didn't like the doll, because that was
Was it Wendy? No, it wasn't Wendy. Was
It
it?
was a more supernatural version of Al Snow's head gimmick, which in itself is like you know, you've got a
nobody-
disembodied item that's talking to you, with
What?
like a mop or a hobby horse.
What does everyone want?
But yeah, well, like you can get like Chavo being associated with Pepe, and you can get Al Snow being associated with Head, as long as we don't actually see Head,
Talking to Al Snow
being,
and-
being
yeah,
animated.
Yeah, I'm
and-
okay with that.
Yeah, you're like, okay, this person is crazy and
Yeah.
is talking to.
Why
a
is he
Head.
employed?
I think that worked with a lot of those gimmicks. Even the Boogeyman, it was like, this is a really weird dude who's backstage.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of worms on him,
And-
and he's
and-
no interest in wrestling, and he's not even that good at it.
and a smoke
But he
machine,
works for a wrestling
and a
company.
smoke machine, and an auxiliary cable coming from his phone to his speaker. Because anytime he comes, all you hear is "I'm the boogeyman," and then the music plays, and then they're going, "Oh no, what's happening?"
I think as a supernatural gimmick goes, I think that's actually pretty grand. It's just like a freak backstage.
Yeah,
just
just a
a
weird-
ladder.
Hang on.
Remember yet Gillian Hall's
Like
mole?
we've all worked with weird people, like
Yeah.
Working with them right now.
There you go.
Yeah, so I suppose we're coming to
don't
the
need to
end
hurt 'em.
because I thought there was a lot more occult stuff to talk about.
like a cult or wrestling cults.
Wrestling cult,
Best wrestling cult is still Raven to my mind.
Flock.
I think
Top class.
yeah. That was
Would you call any faction a
Yeah, I think
what-
Ministry Darkness for me best.
The Ministry,
I wasn't mad with him.
Yeah, I loved
I
it.
think the
the
corporation
higher
fucked it
power
up.
stuff fucked it, yeah.
But I think the Ministry had such a good roster of like good, vaguely
Look,
supernatural teamed
you had
wrestlers.
the Brood in there.
Entire Brood.
You had APA in there.
Yeah.
Midian Viscera.
Midian was the like.
He's
he
perfect
looked
fodder.
perfect
Yeah.
in
Jobber.
that role.
Coming from
I
a
really
pig
like
farmer
Midian.
to a...
yeah.
But you'd imagine that a lad, like a fucking southern lad who's, working farm all day.
Partial to a
pigs.
bit of
Would you-
Maybe
going to
th-
mass on
listens to a
Sunday.
few Black Sabbath albums,
them
Judas
as
Priest.
them as heels also scared me as a kid.
The Godwins.
Yeah.
Because they went full deliverance. They were literally threatening to rape lads.
They were fucking dark. They were dark.
That's actually probably the
Remember that
scariest.
promo they did where Phineas was like, he did the whole like, boy, you should
Boy,
gotta burn him out.
yeah.
Oh man,
I think
yeah.
it was like the Hawk from the other year.
that was so scary.
Imagine what's going on there.
Like Mankind was kind of scary in an intriguing way. That was scary. Like I don't want to watch wrestling anymore.
Like
that
they're
is
the hillbillies from Deliverance in a wrestling ring, and with all of the threats that implies.
man, would you have taken...
Hey, steady on, Shane. Clivet.
Would you have taken Charles Wright in the Ministry as the new Papa Shango, or would you have leaving him in the Nation?
Oh, Nation, Charles Wright, I loved, man. I loved the Nation.
I think
though.
you
I'm
could have done a
marked for the
version of
Nation.
that. Like who used to say that a Haitian voodoo priest can't be part of the fucking Nation of Domination?
That's true as well.
In fact, he'd be kind of
the
like
Haitian of
Wasn't
Domination.
wasn't the Nation of Domination like
Sorry.
Malcolm X Nation of Islam?
Yeah, it was like Nation
militant,
based after
yeah.
Black Panthers.
Yeah.
Great fucking gimmick.
Hard to go from
supernatural?
being a Muslim to a Haitian voodoo doctor.
Not in the world.
don't
of
know. Look
WWF.
at- if
Look at
Owen-
Rikishi. He
if
was a
Owen-
head shrinker.
Look
If
at-
Owen
look at
Harris
the-
can
look
be in
at
that
the-
faction,
Look at
Why
the dentist Isaac Yankem became Kane very, very soon
Fair play.
afterwards.
After being fake Diesel.
I regret to inform you there is, to my knowledge, nothing supernatural about being a dentist.
No,
In going back to what you said about being genuinely scared watching wrestling, can you remember like jump scares? Like there's no they
I
don't
was-
use-
Where I was properly fucking rattled by the emergence of Giant Gonzalez, I have to say.
Oh man, it
Like
wasn't.
he was.
It was
I'd
the
never seen
costume.
him-
It
I'd
was the
never seen El
costume.
Gigante. He was so big and so furry, and I was like, "What the
The
fuck is
costume,
this?"
like, it was the
I
costume.
couldn't understand why any giant like that would wear
That
something
really
like
scared
that.
me. I was pretty rattled around that time. There was a lot because Papa Shango was telling the mix. Yokozuna was a very scary proposition.
Batista when he originally started,
Yokozuna
he
was
was
scary.
Leviathan, and he rose from the Mississippi River
he was a fucking
in OVW.
He was a proper merman.
He was a
A
swamp
merman
baby.
is a scary enough gimmick.
He was a swamp baby.
That's so funny. Yeah,
I've
Maybe
never been
Batista.
able to buy into
John Cena was a robot.
the occult in wrestling. It has always kind of like taken me out of it,
Yeah.
out of the world. And I've for the first time in 10, 15 years, I've been like watching WWE shows, reviewing with Shane there, and going like, I'm really liking this
for the past
product.
10, 15 years.
No, like I haven't liked it for 10, 15 years,
Right.
but for the first time recently,
you
we're
are me.
reviewing
Actually,
You are
what-
me 5 months ago.
and I'm going
Actually,
you know what,
watching
this isn't too
episodes
bad.
of Raw like
Yeah.
for the
Yeah,
first time in a
This
fucking
isn't
decade.
too bad. And then the
Fuck
one
Tony
thing
Khan.
in wrestling that I don't like shows
Tony
up
Khan.
to finish the show. I'm like, they've lost me again.
But
They
you-
just got me back to
Give
last
it
me
a
again.
chance,
Yeah,
Morro.
but you watch like Kenny Omega wrestling little girls and inflatable dolls.
Yeah.
Also against Eddie
Yeah,
on.
see? So your opinion doesn't matter now.
There's not supernatural about Kenny Omega
on an exhibition with
against a
child.
9-year-old. A tough 9-year-old.
Kota Ibushi taking Canadian destroyers off a blow-up sex doll.
You don't know
Deadly.
that was a blow-up sex doll.
It was.
But like, also,
Got the magic from
I went
fucking
to
head.
I went to a Floyd Mayweather exhibition where he was against clearly a guy who was 7,000 times worse than him, and Floyd just kind of made it look.
It was your
okay.
man's day, though. It was your man's day.
You know, so if he can do that, then Kenny Omega can.
Wyatt Six,
have
are you
that.
excited for it?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm interested to see where it goes. I think
Intrigued.
they've got really good members in the faction. I think if they're pushing forward this home invasion, like the worst co-workers in the fucking world's type gimmick, I think that's
it's
great.
going to blow up in WWE's face, and it's going to bring about the end of the company within 6
You go
months.
fucking watch the Dark Order.
Before
right? Johnny Hungry.
What's your beef with the Dark?
No.
Dark Order is a
the
great faction.
fucking
Well,
terrible.
remember
big
the
test.
last Dynamite of 2019 when the Dark Order attacked the Young Bucks at the end of the
And
show.
they were punching. Your man wasn't even punching.
Yeah, and they had the creepy crawly thing.
That was
That was horrendous. And then they reset it and brought in.
Brody Lee coming in really turned
That
things
was it,
around.
yeah.
Guys, where this is going to live or die will be the time that the Wyatt Six get into the ring and have to wrestle.
Yes.
Why'd you have to finish my sentence?
No, I said
Half
it
the
first.
Morro. That was a good point.
Half the
That was
rest.
a great point, Morro.
Like, guys, right? Where this is going to live and die is when the Wyatt Six get into the ring and they have to wrestle.
That's what we end the podcast.
You said it.
You said it right away.
I think.
I know.
I think once the gimmick is protected, once they're not like on TV, multiple segments every week. There's a lot.
Was there 4 of us starting this podcast?
He's going to leave the building now, and then we're going to get attacked. This is what happened on Raw.
Did someone just leave?
The co-workers who leave
There's
early.
only 3 of us here from
Wasn't
the
there
start.
just 3 of us here?
Yeah.
That's been the Wrestling Fan of Wrestling Show podcast. Thanks very much for listening in. Sound off in the comments about the occult. Let us know what you think of the Wyatts. Now there's just 2 of us.
What is going on?
What is happening? The Wyatts are coming. Like, subscribe, comment. Thanks for listening to the Wrestling Fan of Wrestling Show.